25 says, who changed the truth of Elohim into a lie and worshiped and served the creature more than the creator, who is blessed forever.
Okay.
Right? So what do you mean? Who changed the truth of the Most High into a lie? Everything you thought was in the Bible, some years of serious consideration has now shown you that it's not even in the Bible.
This is about the way that I walk. You got an issue about the way that I talk. I'ma give it to you. For the brothers outlined in the chalk, Tamir Rice chilling out in the park. I'ma give it to you. And they don't know the way that I feel. On the mission now to tell you what's real. I'ma give it to you. While you're looking for a proper appeal, you want the gospel just to cop you a feel. I'm not dealing with you. I'm hitting on this track like it's magical. Place it with the classical, or make it international. You want the sympathetic, and I'm a little drastic though. Focus on my past, I'ma give you what you asking for. Save it for the fashion show. Talking about your church service, I ain't here to talk to you. Where the hell your pastor go? Lying through his teeth, preaching like he swear to God, misleading people. Now they act like they ain't scared of God. People looking for change, but choose to walk ahead of y'all. Make a tight beat, tell the truth in the song, and they head a nod. No change, no option of dodging flames. Dreams of copping the rain, sneakers, outfits, and chains. Nigga prophets explain why demon prophets remain. One ticket to hell, my niggas hopping the train. Y'all got a name to put the top prophets to shame. His name and his fame is stopping the pain. This is about the way that I walk. You got an issue about the way that I talk. I'ma give it to you. For the brothers outlined in the chalk, Tamir Rice chilling out in the park. I'ma give it to you. And they don't know the way that I feel. On the mission now to tell you what's real. I'ma give it to you. While you're looking for a proper appeal, you want the gospel just to cop you a feel. I'm not dealing with you. Didn't want to read it, receiving it from the Catholics. Mine couldn't conceive of believing it from the Baptists. The Hebrews wasn't white, so they running all out of actors. Searching through the chapters and seeing they got it backwards. Kindly tell the truth, and the rage and them only escalated. Every word they hated, but none want to debate it. So what I'm supposed to do, let them fake it until they make it. Nah, bowing to the idols, my powers vowing to take them down. Now I believe in smoking while Christians drinking the potion. Everybody's high on that lie when the demon spoken. Alive on the rival with Bruce, we all awoke with. Vision kinda blurry, he's realigning the focus. Gotta tell the truth, if it fills the room or it clears it out. Peers don't wanna hear, so I'm filled with a lot of fears and doubts. You gave me the heart, so it's time to put the action in. Praises that I give you on earth will only be practicing. This is about the way that I walk. You got an issue about the way that I talk. I'ma give it to you. For the brothers outlined in the chalk, Tamir Rice chilling out in the park. I'ma give it to you. And they don't know the way that I feel. On the mission now to tell you what's real. I'ma give it to you. While you're looking for a proper appeal, you want the gospel just to cop you a feel. I'm not dealing with you.
All right. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom. Hopefully, I can be seen and heard. Everything is good. Let me see. All right, so we're gonna get into it. This is a very important Bible study message. All right, it's called "In Isaac Shall Your Seed Be Called." I am going to have to make a part 2 to this because I already know that a lot of apologetics will piggyback Galatians chapter 3 to try to debunk this message or whatnot. You know what I mean? So we're going to have to clear up Galatians chapter 3 in the part 2. But for now, we're going to set the foundation with "In Isaac shall your seed be called." This is a fundamental message through Genesis through Revelations. All right. So in terms of when we say you don't have the whole Bible, you don't have no Bible. In terms of when we say you need to know the Most High, his personality, his likes, his dislikes, the things that he loves, the things that he hates. All right. All of these things are summed up in Isaac shall your seed be called. Before we get into that, let's go ahead and get into our devotion real quick. We'll be coming from Genesis chapter 17, and it will be important, for those of you who do diligently study your Bibles to get into Genesis chapter 17 and read all the way through 19. There's a lot of meat that goes on. But why do we say that this is an important message? Okay, it's important in the fact that a lot of people don't understand the gravity of the covenant, all right? Therefore, they take it as a light thing, or in their ideology, whether you're dealing in religion or whatnot, they assume that, it's over, it's null and void, or it's just not that important, okay? That's a fundamental flaw that we are going to have to bring out with clarity, okay? We're going to have to bring that thing out with clarity. All right. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the reading, starting at verse 1, Genesis chapter 17. Well, before I do that, if I can be seen and heard, because I don't want to do a lot of reading and then my mic is messed up. Someone please put a 1 in the comments. If my audio is good and my video is good, someone please put a 1 in the comments before we start the reading, right? And then Genesis chapter 17 is basically dealing with the circumcision. All right. And we're only going to use this for a devotion, but if I'm good, let's go ahead and, all right. Thank you, Brother Chick. Shabbat Shalom. Says I'm good in YouTube land. Brother Quam 12. Shabbat Shalom. Says I'm good in YouTube land as well. Hopefully we can get somebody from Facebook to let us know that we're good. All right. And hopefully my mic isn't too low or too loud. I wish I could just hear myself. I'm gonna probably have to just use headphones moving forward. But if I'm sounding okay, looking okay in Facebook land, someone please put a 1 in the comments. Right. All right, so let's just go ahead. Starting at verse 1, it says, "And it came to be, when Abram was 99 years old, that Yahawah appeared to Abram and said to him, I am El Shaddai. Walk with me, be perfect." Salakia. All right. So we are good. We're good in Facebook. Shabbat Shalom, Brother Romania. All right. He says, let me start over. "And it came to be, when Abram was 99 years old, that Yahawah appeared to Abram and said to him, I am El Shaddai, walk before me and be perfect. And I give my covenant between me and you, and shall greatly increase you. And Abram fell on his face, and Elohim spoke with him, saying, As for me, look, my covenant is with you, and you shall become a father of many nations. And no longer is your name called Abram, but your name shall be called Abraham, because I shall make you a father of many nations. And I shall make you exceedingly fruitful, and make nations of you, and kings shall come from you. And I shall establish my covenant between me and you and your seed after you in their generations, and for an everlasting covenant to be Elohim to you and your seed after you. And I shall give to you and your seed after you the land of your sojourning, all the land of Canaan, and as an everlasting possession. And I shall be their Elohim. And Elohim said to Abram, As for you, guard my covenant, you and your seed after you throughout their generations. And this is my covenant which you guard between me and you and your seed after you. Every male child among you is to be circumcised. You shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall become a sign of the covenant between me and you. And a son of 8 days is circumcised by you, every male child in your generation. He who was born in your house or bought with silver from any foreigner who is not of your seed. He who was born in your house and he who was bought with your silver has to be circumcised. So shall my covenant be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. And verse 14, and an uncircumcised male child who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, his life shall be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant. And Elohim said to Abram, As for Sarai, your wife, do not call her name Sarai, for Sarah is her name. And I shall bless her, and also give you a son by her. And I shall bless her, and she shall become nations. Kings of peoples are to be from her. And Abraham fell on his face and laughed, and said in his heart, Is a child born to a man who is 100 years old, and Sarah who is 99 years old to bear a child? And Abraham said to Elohim, Oh, let Ishmael live before you. And Elohim said, No, Sarah your wife is truly bearing a son to you, and you shall call his name Isaac. And I shall establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him. And as for Ishmael, I have heard you. See, I shall bless him. and shall make him fruitful and greatly increase him. He is to bring forth 12 princes, and I shall make him a great nation. But my covenant I establish with Isaac, whom Sarah is to bear to you at this appointed time next year. And when he had ended speaking with him, Elohim went up from Abraham, and Abraham took Ishmael his son, and all those born in his house, and all those bought with silver, every male among the men of Abraham's house, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskins that same day, as Elohim told him. And Abraham was 99 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. And Ishmael his son was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. Abraham and his son Ishmael were circumcised that same day. And all the men of his house born in the house or bought with silver from a foreigner were circumcised with him. All right, so we're going to use that to set the premise of today's Bible study. There's more that we can get into and we will touch, you know what I'm saying, into Genesis chapter 17, 18, and 19, so on and so forth, to bring this message. But as for now, let's go ahead and get into the Bible study. In Isaac shall your seed be called, right? So a lot of what we deal with when we're dealing in this Bible study is the fact that a lot of people don't really understand this concept and they take it for granted. All right. The covenant between Yahawah and his chosen people is more than a historical agreement, right? It is the foundation of identity, purpose, and divine promise. Yet many who descend from this covenantal line have lost sight of its significance due to centuries of church doctrine and cultural confusion. At the center of this divine oath is Isaac, not Ishmael or any other son of Abraham. For Yahawah declared, "In Isaac shall your seed be called." All right, so this Bible study uncovers the weight of that promise, the sacred birthright that Esau forfeited to Jacob, and why understanding this truth is crucial for reclaiming our heritage, walking in obedience, and honoring our relationship with the Creator. Okay, it's important that we get all of this meat, all right, on the table for you all today. Okay, "In Isaac shall thy seed be called." Hold it. All right. Let's move. All right. So let's deal with verse 19 of what we just read. Okay. Because the Most High Yah, he established a foundational covenant with Abraham, right? Promising to make him a great nation and to bless all nations through his offspring. Okay. And we get that in Genesis 12, verses 2 through 3. Okay. This promise was unconditional and everlasting. All right. An oath sworn by Yahawah himself. Notably, Yahawah declared that the covenant line would continue specifically through Abraham's son Isaac, not through any of Abraham's other children. He says in verse 19, "And Elohim said, No, Sarah your wife is truly bearing a son to you, and you shall call his name Isaac. Right? And I shall establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him." Okay. So understand, when Abraham pleaded for Ishmael, because at the time Hagar had his son, Hagar, the Egyptian maidservant of Sarah, okay, had Ishmael for Abraham at that time. So when the Most High made him that promise that his seed would multiply, he assumed naturally that it would be through Ishmael. Okay, so the Most High was like, no. All right, after he pleaded for him, he says, "No, Sarah your wife is truly bearing you a son, and you should call his name Isaac." All right, so when the Most High said no, all right, he's going to establish his covenant with Isaac. All right, understand, it wasn't a not to Ishmael. All right, the Most High had other plans, but this is an establishing of a choosing. All right, of being chosen or having a set apart people. Okay, because the underlying message that a lot of people, or question that a lot of people ask, is why does the Most High have chosen people, right? Why are these people special and these people are not? Understand that the promises come through Isaac and not Ishmael, right? So understanding the covenant promise to Abraham, we have to get that in Romans chapter 9 and verse 7, where Paul says, "Neither are they all children, because they are the seed of Abraham, but in Isaac your seed shall be called." So in other words, when we say or when the Bible says, and Isaac your seed shall be called, Isaac alone was the child of promise through whom the covenant would pass. This was not due to personal merit, but by Yahawah's sovereign choice, all right, and his faithfulness to his word. So when the Most High says a thing, he means it, okay? As Paul later, he explained it in Romans chapter 9 and verse 7, all right? He says, not all Abraham's offspring are his chosen, okay? This is what he's saying. Abraham is a father of many nations, yes, but he has a chosen nation. Not all of them, just because they came from Abraham, are his chosen, okay? It says, but in Isaac your seed shall be called. Yahawah's covenant promise would bring to pass exactly as he swore through Isaac's lineage, according to his purpose. Okay. So this emphasis on Isaac is critical. Okay, why we keep bringing up Isaac is very critical. It shows that the covenant was never about simply being a biological descendant of Abraham, but about the line that Yahawah elected. Okay, understand that Isaac's birth itself was miraculous and appointed. He was the son of Sarah in her old age, and the fulfillment of Yahawah's word. All right, the everlasting covenant with Abraham was renewed in Isaac by divine oath. Okay, when we look in the book of Sirach, chapter 44, looking at verses 22 through 23, what does it say? It says, with Isaac did he establish likewise for Abraham for his father's sake. All right, the blessing of all men and the covenant. Right, verse 23, and made it rest upon the head of Jacob. Okay. He acknowledged him in his blessing and gave him a heritage, right? And divided his portions among the 12 tribes did he part them. Okay, so understand the covenant promise to Abraham and how it succeeded through Isaac and then down to Jacob. Okay, understand verse 5, or let's get Sirach chapter 45 and verse 5. Okay, he says, he made him to hear his voice and brought him into the dark cloud and gave him commandments before his face, even the law of life and knowledge, that he might teach Jacob his covenants and Israel his judgments. Right? Understanding. And then this also points to an underlining misconception from people who say the laws of Moses. Okay, the Most High had established covenant and laws in Abraham's time, and it was promised that Abraham would pass it down to his sons. But let's not get off course. This emphasis on Isaac is crucial. It shows that the covenant was never about simply being a biological descendant. I think I read all of this. All right. But understand, he made the same covenant with Isaac. All right. This covenant included promises of land, blessings, and a special relationship with Yahawah, all destined to flow through Isaac to the next generation. Okay. Right. So Isaac to Jacob, right? The birthright and the chosen line. All right. Isaac became the father of twin sons, right? Esau and Jacob. But once again, Yahawah made a sovereign choice. He didn't choose both of them. Okay. At the only time when the Most High chooses multiple children is when we get to the line of Jacob with his 12 sons. All right. He also had a daughter named Dinah, who's not mentioned because she is not one of the chosen, so on and so forth. But at the same time, understand this important parallel, because we're going to bring out an important part about Esau, all right, and his attitude towards the covenant. Okay, there's a parallel with people who assume the laws are done away with, all right, with Esau and his attitude towards the covenant. Okay, we're going to get it. Okay, we're going to get it. It says Isaac became the father of twin sons, Esau and Jacob. But once again, Yahawah made a sovereign choice. While the twins were still in the womb, scripture says the older shall serve the younger. Okay, and there's a lot of people who go into Bible breakdowns and so on and so forth, and they say Jacob is a usurper, and the line was supposed to go to to Esau, but he tricked him and so on and so forth. But understand the prophecy. The Most High said first, the older shall serve the younger, indicating that Jacob, the younger, was chosen to carry the covenant line, even when they were in the womb, before they could do good or evil. All right. This was later affirmed by the famous declaration. All right. Jacob have I loved, and Esau have I hated. All right. Strong language. All right. Underscoring the Most High's election of Jacob for the set apart promise. Right. Let's get it. Let's read. In Romans chapter 9, verse 11 through 13, it says, yet before they were born or had done any good or evil, in order that the purpose of Elohim according to choice might stand, not of works, but of him who calls. It was said to her, the greater shall serve the lesser, as it has been written, Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I hated. All right. So understand that it wasn't just family wealth at stake with this birthright, right? It wasn't about family or you know how the elder son inherits the father's possessions and household and wealth, so on and so forth, right? It wasn't about that. Okay. That's the thing that we don't really, that people misunderstand. The birthright that Esau would technically inherit as firstborn was thus of immense spiritual significance. It wasn't just family wealth at stake, but the covenant blessings given to Abraham and Isaac. The destiny of the Most High's chosen people was in Esau's hands. Okay? It was in Esau's hands. Esau's tragic choice, all right, illustrates the weight of the birthright. One day, Esau came in from the field, famished, and begged Jacob for some lentil stew. Right? Jacob seized the moment and asked Esau to sell him his birthright in exchange for the meal. All right. And what does Esau say? He says in Genesis 25 and 32, look, I am about to die, Esau said. So what is this birthright to me? Okay. He's about comfort. He's about, you know what I mean, satisfying his flesh. Okay. At the same time, he's famished and he's like, this birthright means nothing to me if I'm about to die. All right. In Genesis chapter 27 and 29, it says, let the people serve you and nations bow down to you. Be masters. Salakia, I'm moving too fast. Let's get it. Esau says, look, I'm about to die. All right. So what is this birthright to me? OK, so in that moment of weakness, Esau swore away his birthright to Jacob for bread and pottage. Right. The Bible it soberly comments that Esau despised his birthright. In a sense, if Esau was despising the birthright, he was also despising Isaac. Okay, that's what people really need to connect with. When he despised his birthright, he was despising Isaac and that covenant promise that the Most High gave. It didn't matter. It didn't mean that much to him. Okay, so later when Isaac was old and blind, Jacob urged his mother Rebekah. Okay. Also obtained the patriarchal blessings from Isaac, all right, from impersonating Esau when we get into Genesis 27, 18 through 29, all right. That's where we were at when in verse 29 he says, let people serve you. This is the blessings that the Most High, or that Isaac is bestowing upon Jacob as he impersonates Esau. Isaac tells him, he says, let people serve you and nations bow down to you. Be master over your brothers and let your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be those cursing you and blessed be those blessing you. All right. So understand that is the covenant of Isaac being passed down to Jacob. The blessing Isaac spoke over Jacob included being Lord over his brothers. All right. And the famous words, cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be those who bless you, echoing the Most High Yah's original promise to Abraham. Okay, so in effect, Jacob received the full weight of the Abrahamic covenant, the very promise of Yahawah that carries his power to fulfilling his word. Okay, and understand those who are of the Most High, that keep his law, statutes, and commandments and are in covenant with him, we carry this exact same Abrahamic covenant, right? The one bestowed upon Isaac. Okay, so the scriptures confirmed that this transfer was divinely ordained. All right. The New Testament warns believers not to profane like Esau, who for one morsel of solid food, for one morsel of food sold his birthright. All right. In Hebrews chapter 12 and verse 15, it says, see to it that no one falls short of the favor of Elohim, that no root of bitterness springing up causes trouble, by which many become defiled, lest there be anyone who whores or profane one like Esau, who for a single meal sold his birthright. Okay. So understand that and the Apocrypha likewise accounts, unto Abraham thou gavest Isaac, unto Isaac thou also gavest Jacob and Esau. For Jacob thou didst choose him to thee, and put by Esau. He says, so Jacob became a great multitude. All right. So in other words, the Most High Yah set Esau aside and chose Jacob to himself in order to produce the multitude of the covenant people. Right. Jacob's new name given by Elohim was Israel, in Genesis 32:28. And from him came the 12 tribes of Israel, who are the physical nucleus of Yahweh's chosen, of the Most High's chosen people, Salakia. All right. So hopefully I'm not speaking too fast. Okay. Because you have to understand the attitudes of the twins. The attitudes of the twins is very important and very telling. Because, you know what I'm saying, when you look at Jacob, he was eager to obtain this blessing. And Esau, having the blessing, was, you know what I mean, despised it. The scripture says he hated that covenant, right? And that also gives context into why the scripture says, Jacob have I loved and Esau have I hated, okay? But anyway, Jacob's life shows Yahweh's faithfulness despite human frailty. All right. The Most High confirmed the promise directly to Jacob in a dream at Bethel, saying, okay, I am Yahawah, your Elohim I am Yahawah, Elohim of Abraham, your father, and the Elohim of Isaac. The land on which you are lying, I give to you and your seed. Your seed shall be as the dust of the earth, and all the clans of the earth shall be blessed in you and your seed. All right. So understand that. The Abrahamic covenant, all right, with all its blessings and responsibilities, rested upon the head of Jacob, all right, who in turn passed it to his 12 sons, all right. So the birthright and blessings were never trivial. They were the vehicle of Yahweh's oath to Abraham. Jacob cherished it, Esau scorned it. Okay, Yahweh honored Jacob's tenacity and hated Esau's careless profanity. Okay, ensuring that his word of promise stood fulfilled through Jacob. Okay, Esau didn't care if the Most High's word, you know what I'm saying, went forward and fulfilled what he said, right? But Jacob did. A lot of people miss that parallel. We have to bring it up. All right. So why Yahweh chose a particular nation? All right. Or it's a lot of people like to ask, why would God, all right, have a chosen nation? Isn't he the God of all peoples? That's what many would ask, right? So indeed, the Most High Yahweh is creator of all, but scripture reveals that he chose Israel for a special purpose in his redemptive plan. After Jacob's descendants were enslaved in Egypt, Yahweh delivered them with mighty miracles and formally covenanted them at Mount Sinai, all right? It became formal, making Israel his own nation. He declared, now therefore, if you indeed, in Exodus chapter 19, verse 5 and 6, he says, now therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice and guard my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession out of all the peoples, and you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. All right. So when this goes over people's heads, then they don't really understand when Hosea chapter 4 and verse 6 says, my people perish for a lack of knowledge. All right. And since you have rejected knowledge, I reject you for what? Being a priest to me. Right. The Most High had made the covenant for Jacob's children to be a kingdom of priests and a set apart nation. Right. Showing the world how it's done. Right. How do we serve this creator? All right. You look to Jacob and his children to see and find out how to serve the creator. Okay. It is what it is. All right. All right. So we see the purpose. Okay. We see the purpose of Israel. All right. Israel was meant to be a set apart people representing Yahweh's ways to the world, a priestly nation that will model righteousness. All right. And mediate blessings to all other nations. Okay, the Most High's chosen nation was not selected due to their size or strength, but purely because of his love and faithfulness, right? The Most High declares something with his mouth and he brings it to pass, right? So, as Moses told the Israelites, Yahawah your Elohim has chosen you to be a people for himself, a treasured possession above all the peoples on the face of the earth. Yahawah did not set his love on you, nor choose you because you were more numerous, for you were the least of all peoples. But because Yahawah loves you, and because of his guarding the oath which he swore to your fathers, all right? In other words, this is what the Most High says. God chose Israel out of love and to keep his covenant oath to Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. Okay, so understand when we walk in faithfulness and obedience to the Most High, we are guarding, all right, what the Most High holds near and dear to his heart, his word, his promise that he gave to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. All right, and those who forsake that, those are the ones he hates, right? This emphasizes that Yahawah's choice of Israel is an extension of his promise to the patriarchs, the very promise that Esau forfeited and Jacob inherited. Okay? So, being the chosen people came with privileges and responsibilities. All right? In Amos chapter 3, verse 2, he says, "You only have I known of all the families of the earth." All right, said Yahawah through the prophet Amos, "Therefore I will punish you for all your iniquities." Okay, therefore I will punish you for all your iniquities. Israel received the Most High's laws, the Torah, all right, as part of the covenant, and were expected to keep his commandments diligently. All right, he has remembered his covenant forever. In Psalms chapter 105, verses 8 and 10. Okay, what does he say? He has remembered his covenant forever, the word which he commanded for 1,000 generations, the covenant which he made with Abraham and his oath to Isaac, right? And confirmed it to Jacob for a law, to Israel as an everlasting covenant, all right? So understand, this underscores that the law or the Torah was given in context of the covenant relationship, okay? So when a person says that they accept Jesus Christ for the remission of their sins, right? What does that mean? All right, or the question is, then what? Right? You've done that, now what? Now you have to get back into covenant compliance with the Most High. That means the things that he says to do, you must do. The things he says refrain from doing, you must refrain from doing, right? And that's the apostles' message after Christ descended, or after he ascended back to the Father. They kept that message going, okay? It wasn't until the Roman Catholic Church came in and created heresy, you know what I'm saying, and diabolical doctrines that a lot of people follow to this day, okay? It is what it is. This underscores that the law was given in context to the covenant relationship, all right? So indeed, Paul reminds us that to Israel belongs the what? The adoption, the glory, the covenants, the giving of the Torah, the worship, and the promises, whose are the fathers, and from whom is the Messiah according to the flesh. Okay? Let's keep it moving. Shabbat shalom, Brother Brian. Well, it's good to see you. All right. And this isn't a long lesson, but hopefully you're getting something out of this. And if you are, you know what I mean, kindly just hit the like button. Appreciate it. All right. So Israel's heritage was unique. Okay. It was unique. There was a difference between Ishmael and Isaac. All right. And it's the same with the Most High's chosen people today. It is unique. They were entrusted with the words of Elohim. Okay. They were entrusted with the words of Elohim, and the promise of the Messiah. Okay. Yahawah's plan was that this nation of priests would uphold his commandments and manifest his wisdom and justice among the nations. Right? Where do we get that? In Deuteronomy chapter 4, looking at verse 6 through 8, it says, and you shall guard and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding before the eyes of the people who hear all these laws. And they shall say, only a wise and understanding people is this great nation. For what great nation is there which has Elohim so near to it, as Yahawah our Elohim is to us whenever we call on him? And verse 8, and what great nation is there that has such laws and righteous judgments like all this Torah which I set before you this day? Okay, by living out the covenant, Israel would bring light to the Gentiles, right? And ultimately, through this people would come Yahawah, all right, our Messiah, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. Okay, so in fulfillment of the promise that in Abraham's seed all nations would be blessed. Okay, only if they had kept the commandments and kept the example of righteousness for others to follow, which we attempt to do this today. Okay, so it's crucial to note that Yahawah's choice of Israel did not negate other nations. All right, that's not what we're saying, but it provided a channel of blessing to those nations. The covenant with Abraham included, in you, all right, all the families of the earth shall be blessed. Israel's very identity was to be the vehicle of that blessing, all right, preserving the knowledge of the true God and the scriptures, and ultimately bringing forth the Messiah, right? Having a chosen nation was Yahawah's method to reach all nations, right? Not favoritism in a human sense, okay? As Paul, he explains it. He says in Romans chapter 3, verse 1 and 2, what advantage has the Jew? Much in every way, chiefly because to them were committed the oracles of God. What is the oracles of God? The words of Elohim. Okay, that goes back into when we were giving you the what was that Bible study called? Dang, it escaped me. We just did this Bible study like maybe a couple of Sabbaths ago. The true custodians of the scriptures, right? That's why Israel is the true custodians of the scriptures. Okay. Shabbat shalom, brother Donnie. Good to see you out. Right? Because why? Chiefly, much in every way, chiefly because to them were committed the words of Elohim, not to the Roman Catholic Church and things of that nature. We're not going to get back into that conversation, but hopefully you understand. All right. The Most High's faithfulness to Israel demonstrates to the world that he keeps his word. Okay, how important is it that you understand the Most High keeps his word? He hated Esau because Esau didn't care to, to uphold the Most High's word. He said, I don't care. I despise this birthright. Take it. Understand that. He bound himself by covenant to Israel's fathers. All right. And he has preserved Israel through history against all odds to glorify his name. All right. Even when Israel failed and was exiled, the Most High Yahawah, all right, did not abandon his covenant. Okay. Did he? When we look at the book of Baruch, okay, chapter 2, verses 34 through 35. All right. Understand that. He says, I will bring them again into the land which I promised with an oath unto their fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and they shall be lords of it. And I will make an everlasting covenant with them and to be their Elohim. All right. So clearly, the Most High Yahawah's plan for a chosen nation is irrevocably tied to his oath. Right. It is about his reliability and his purpose. Okay, if the Most High says it, he's going to bring that thing to pass. Okay, and he's not cutting off his people. Okay, because that's what the Christian church would say. Oh, he divorced Israel and now the church is taking its place. No, that's replacement theology. Okay, and that's also calling the Most High Yahawah a lie. All right, so as we wrap up and wind down, then we got about 10 more slides to go. Let's get into the covenant. All right, versus lawless doctrines. Okay, because we have to clear up some misconceptions. And then we also said that we're going to have a part 2 to this Bible study. All right, because people are going to use nasty work with Galatians chapter 3 to try to undermine the covenant. All right. So just be prepared, all right, to hear a bunch of nonsense and confusion, all right? And we'll bring out how Paul was used as a stumbling block, all right, to those who didn't, you know what I'm saying, love the truth. It is what it is. But unfortunately, all right, a lack of clear biblical teaching on these covenant truths has led many of the Most High's own covenant people into confusion, right? Today, many so-called Christians, all right, have been taught church doctrines that misinterpret or even disregard the covenant. Without understanding the importance of the Abrahamic promise in Isaac and Jacob, people conclude that Israel's role no longer matters or that God's laws have been nullified. All right. This results in what can be called a lawless doctrine, a belief that keeping Yahawah's commandments is optional or unnecessary. All right. Such doctrine saps the covenant people of their identity and the pride of belonging to Yahawah. Okay. If one thinks the covenant is obsolete, one sees no purpose in keeping the commandments, right? As people's attitudes are today. And thus many believers drift into a lawless, all right, faith, missing out on the fullness of a relationship with the Creator. Okay. So it's imperative to correct this misunderstanding with scripture. All right. So the renewed covenant, all right, does not abolish the Abrahamic covenant or the Most High Yahawah's laws. Rather, it fulfills it and reinforces them. All right. The Messiah Yahawah, he says in Matthew chapter 5 and 17, he says, do not think that I've come to destroy the Torah or the prophets. I did not come to destroy, but to fulfill or complete. All right. He warned that whoever ignores what? The least commandment and teaches others to do so shall be called the least in the kingdom. But whoever practices and teaches the commandments shall be called great. All right? Understand that. Okay? So far from promoting lawlessness, Yahawah upheld the eternal validity of God's commandments, even summarizing the law's greatest precepts as love for God and love for your neighbor, right? When we get into Matthew 22, verses 36 through 40, all right? And side note, right? Being least in the kingdom is the equivalent of Esau forsaking the covenant of Isaac, all right? Therefore, the Most High Yah, he hated Esau and he loved Jacob. Okay? As a small little tidbit and side note. Okay? So the apostolic writings likewise affirm that the covenant and commandments remain in effect for Yahawah's people. All right? So the Apostle Peter, he addressed the Israelites after the Pentecost, right? Or the Feast of Weeks, as he called them what? Sons of the covenant, right? Let's get it. The Apostle Paul addressed the Israelites after Pentecost as sons of the prophets and of the covenant which Elohim made with our fathers, saying to Abraham, and in your seed all the nations of the earth shall be blessed. All right. He then urged them to turn from sin. All right. And what is sin? Transgressing the law. 1 John chapter 3, verse 4. Okay. He didn't say that, you know what I'm saying, you can go ahead and do your own thing as long as you believe. That's why we have to get into Galatians chapter 3 next week. All right. It is what it is. All right. In Peter's view, coming to the Messiah was not a rejection of the covenant, but the very outworking of it. Okay. Paul, he also asks a rhetorical question. Does their unbelief nullify the faithfulness of Elohim? Certainly not. All right. In Romans 3 through 4. Okay, so what are we understanding? The Most High, he remains faithful to his covenant with Israel. Paul himself was an Israelite who believed in Yahawah, and he taught that God has not cast away his people whom he foreknew in Romans 11, verses 1 and 2. Okay. So crucially, the New Testament identifies true believers as those who both what? Trust in the Messiah and keep God's commandments, right? The book of Revelations, describing the end time faithful remnant, says, here is the endurance of the what? Set apart ones. Your KJV says saints. Here are those guarding the commandments of Elohim and the belief of Yahawah. All right. And in Revelations chapter 12 and verse 17, it says, and the dragon was enraged with the woman, and he went to fight with the remnant of her seed, those guarding the commandments of Elohim and possessing the witness of Yahawah Hamashiach. Right? So, what does John say? Let's get it. There's no separation between covenant identity and obedience, right? When we talk about covenant compliance and things of that nature, there is no separation, all right? There is no separation in between your covenant identity and obedience, right? If you are a true follower of the Messiah, you are keeping the law, statutes, and commandments. It's just that simple. You're not following a lawless doctrine and misinterpreting grace and mercy. You're not misinterpreting that. You're understanding that the Most High says whatever the Most High says with his mouth, all right, he brings it to pass, right? He means what he says, all right? He says what he means, and he means what he says, all right? So anyways, let's deal with the Apostle John, because he wrote in 1 John chapter 5 and verse 2. He says, by this we know that we love the children of Elohim, all right? When we love Elohim and keep his commandments, all right? And then he says, and he who says, I know him, in 1 John chapter 2 and verse 4, and he who says, I know him and does not keep his commandments is a liar, all right? These scriptures demolish the idea that the covenant is irrelevant or that believers are free to live lawlessly. Yahweh's covenant people are expected to cherish his Torah, which is their wisdom and inheritance, right? As Baruch chapter 4 and verse 1 says, this is the book of the covenant of God, right? And the Torah that endures forever. All who hold fast will live, right? All who hold it fast will live, but those who forsake it will die. Okay, the attitude of Esau and the attitude of Jacob displayed right there. We take pride in our relationship with the Creator by obeying his voice, just as our father Abraham did in Genesis 26 and 5, right? All right, and I think we just read this, Baruch chapter 4 and verse 1, right? Oh yeah. Let's get it. Let's keep it moving. So we are at our conclusion. My bad, brother Brian over here in the comments. Good to see you out. Says obedience is the very best way to show that we believe. Salaki of Khan. All right. So in summary, as a matter of fact, let me get myself in case anyone wants to come on. You know what I mean? And add to the wisdom, you know what I'm saying? We welcome it. But in summary, the covenant between Yahawah and his chosen people is the backbone of the entire biblical narrative, right? When we say if you don't have the whole Bible, you don't have no Bible, this is exactly what we mean, all right? The covenant between the Most High and his chosen people is the backbone of the entire biblical narrative. Abraham's promise was funneled through Isaac by the Most High's explicit decree, okay, excluding Abraham's other children from the covenant line. Isaac's son Jacob secured the birthright, and with it, the mantle of the covenant, which Esau carelessly gave up. The birthright was far more than family property. It was the inheritance of Yahawah's oath, the lineage through which the word of Elohim would be fulfilled. Okay, that was important to the Most High Yahawah, right? Jacob valued what Esau despised, and thus Jacob became a progenitor of the Most High set-apart nation Israel. Okay, so understand, Yahawah's purpose in having a chosen nation was never an exercise in favoritism. It was strategic and it was redemptive. All right, it was to bring forth what he promised. Okay, through Israel, the Most High revealed his laws, his character, and ultimately his sent son Yahawah, all right, to redeem Israel and bring them back into the covenant he established through Isaac, all in line with the promise to Abraham that in his seed the nations will be blessed. right? So the Most High chose Israel to be a light, all right, and a representative of his ways. And he bound himself to Israel with unbreakable covenants, all right? Psalms chapter 94 and verse 14 says, "For Yahawah will not cast away his people, nor abandon his inheritance." Okay? Right? So realizing these truths is crucial for if you understand who your identity as an Israelite, all right? Or if you're a Christian who don't know your true identity, all right? It's this realizing this truth is crucial, all right? and hopefully it's propelling or it's urging you to seek clarity. All right, seek clarity in the scriptures that's so often ignored in churches, right? Understand. When you understand how crucial these truths are, it restores a sense of identity, purpose, and responsibility. All right, we are a covenant people, a chosen race, all right, a royal priesthood, a set apart nation, a people of his own possession. Okay, according to 1 Peter, okay, chapter 2 and verse 9. Okay. Understand that the covenant is not void, it is renewed and written on our hearts through the Messiah. Okay, so rather than misinterpreting grace as lawlessness, we understand that being in covenant with Yahawah elevates us to walk in obedience out of love. Right? What does he say in 1 John chapter 5 and verse 3? "For this is the love of God, that we keep his commandments, and his commandments are not grievous." Right? Your KJV says grievous, burdensome, right? Not hard. When they say, can't nobody keep all those laws, you just called the Most High a lie, right? We keep Torah not to be saved, but because we are, okay? We are saved and set apart as his heritage. It's not something you do to gain. It's something you do because of your status, because of who you are and what you are called to do, okay? And they flip that on you and they call it legalism. All right, and cause all types of confusion with that, right? It is what it is. Okay, so let us dispel the church-taught myth that the covenant no longer matters. Yahawah's covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is everlasting. It defines who the chosen people are, all right, and what they are called to do, right? If we belong to Messiah, we are counted as Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise, okay? And we are going to get into Galatians chapter 3 and deal with we're going to deal with that whole chapter. But anyways, therefore we uphold the covenant and take pride in our relationship with our Creator and our heritage as Israel. We reject a lawless doctrine that strips us of our identity and power. All right. Instead, we embrace the fullness of the covenant, the promises and the commandments, the identity and the lifestyle of Yahawah's people. Okay, we take on all of that responsibility. Okay, so understand that this clarity is liberating. It calls us back to our roots and back to righteousness, as it is written in 2 Ezra chapter 6 and verse 9. Okay, for Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning that follows. All right, so we are living in prophetic times when Yahawah's, when the Most High is awakening his chosen people. Right, when he's awakening his covenant people. The kingdoms of this world, all right, Esau's world, are ending, and the kingdom of the Most High, all right, Jacob's future, is beginning to rise. Now is the time to stand proudly as Yahawah's chosen, keeping his commandments and faith in Yahawashi, so that we may partake in the blessings of the covenant and lead others into the hope of the promise. Right? So, in conclusion, let me get my brother in here, right? In conclusion, the covenant of Yahawah with his people Israel remains profoundly relevant and alive. It is our duty and joy to keep that covenant, all right? By doing so, by walking in obedience and faith, we honor Yahawah who brings his word to pass, and prove ourselves true children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and whom all the families of the earth shall ultimately be blessed. All right, so my good brother Chick come in and give us some wisdom. Good to see you. Shabbat shalom.
Good to see you, bro. Shabbat shalom.
Yeah.
I'm just here to add a little perspective and just piggyback because you hit everything. You hit everything I was thinking from beginning to end. And I just want to add, like you say, I think it's sometimes purposely, but also sometimes without thought done. This narrative, like you said, that the Most High chose a people just randomly and thoughtlessly for no reason, just because, and we're not understanding the responsibility and the purpose behind it. It's no different than any parent who's going away and has to put a child in charge to make sure the home is run correctly. I love to use analogies, and I always think of when my mother talks about her childhood. My grandmother was raised in a house of 4 by herself. That house was referred to as the crazy Puerto Ricans, even though they ain't even Puerto Rican. But my mother was not the oldest. She was just the most responsible. So she was always placed in charge. What we forget, we think of that as that's just something to gloat about, and you were chosen and it's all gravy and you can just rest on your laurels. There's a responsibility that came with that. So not only was she the most responsible, but now she's the most accountable. When things go bad and grandma comes home, she gets talked to first. You know what I'm saying? She gets the heaviest burden. That's applies to us. It's not just coming into this truth and going, oh, we're chosen, throw on the crown and let's high step. This is, oh, we're chosen, and we're chosen because we're supposed to be leading people back. I always use the example of how I came into this truth, and it was a white person saying, please, we need y'all to come back because we are lost. And that's what sticks in my head often. When I realized who I was excited, but then I was like nervous, like, oh, I got work to do. Like, this just isn't about me saving myself. This is about me being an example for everybody that I'm sharing this with. I can't share this with my family, and then they look at me like, who is he to talk? You know what I'm saying? I have to walk a walk. So we get this thing where, okay, now we're the chosen ones, or other outsiders see, oh, you're chosen, you think you're this and that. No, it's supposed to be we're chosen. So yeah, that's a blessing. And it's a promise that I'm thankful for every day, but it's a responsibility. We're held to a higher standard. Our punishment is harsher if we don't do what we're supposed to do. So we need to look at it from that perspective. It's not just something to gloat about. It's not something just to be proud of, and that's it. It's a walk to carry. For most simple term, just a cross to bear. And I think when we look at it from that perspective, we understand better, we walk better, and we can get others to understand that, yeah, we're not, like you said, it's about the Most High's whole family. He's trying to save as many people as he can. And he's doing it through us because we're supposed to be the most responsible child that he left at home while he stepped away. That's all we have to add to that. I'm looking forward to part 2, and I'll say that because I kid you not, last week me and my son were going over Galatians. He's in there right now, and that's what we've been talking about. We were talking about Galatians 3 specifically. I'm so excited to hear your breakdown next week because, like I said, it always seems like we're in the same realm. So I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for the day. Appreciate you, bro.
Appreciate you, fam. You know what I'm saying? And appreciate that word. I have to go back and forth and mute my speakers so I don't echo. But yeah, we appreciate that analogy because that actually, you know what I'm saying, makes perfect sense. And then too, you know what I'm saying, I know when we're talking about chosen things of that nature, I don't let the conversation get so sideways to where people assume that I'm trying to be boastful or proud or whatever. You know what I'm saying? I use it to explain the plight of our people and why we go through the curses of Deuteronomy 28 verses 15 through 68 and things of that nature, because a lot of people miss that. But yeah, it was intended that, you know what I'm saying, the blessings of Deuteronomy 28, 1 through 14 was supposed to take place. All right. But it just ends up that we are going through the things that we go through. And a lot of our people misunderstand that, you know what I'm saying, that connection with Isaac. All right. I try to bring people back to that because it shows. And when you read that in detail and you do your study in Genesis 17, or actually go back to Genesis 12 and read all the way up to Genesis 19 and get that whole picture, understand how the Most High feels about his covenant with Isaac. It is very, very important to the Most High. Okay, so much so, in fact, that when Esau abandoned it, he hated Esau for that, right? When Esau, just like the Bible said, despised his birthright, the Most High hated Esau. Okay, you know what I'm saying? It's not about a particular, there's a context to it that a lot of people miss when they say, oh, you know what I'm saying, the Most High hates Esau and the Most High loved Jacob. But there's a context to that. All right, there's a context, and we want to bring out how important that covenant with Isaac is to the Most High Yah. It's that important to him to this day. All right. So, you know what I'm saying, when we could bring that out with clarity, you know what I'm saying, we can dispel the notion that his laws are done away with and get people to understand, or at least research and find out the things that the Most High loves and what he hates. All right. And I think his covenant with Isaac will paint a perfect picture, because that same covenant is a fulfilling of his word in us today. Right. So we appreciate everybody for coming through, and hopefully you got something out of this Bible study. You know what I'm saying? And the Most High willing, we'll be back with another Shabbat Bible study next week. As we said, we'll get into, we'll make a part 2 of this Bible study, and we will break down Galatians chapter 3 and remove all of the confusion. All right, that Paul, he does bring a lot of confusion, and there's a lot of double talk in that, but we'll break it all the way down and get to it. All right, so anyways, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. That's Bible study. Brother Chick, we appreciate you for coming through and giving us that wisdom. Shabbat Shalom, Brother Emmanuel Bronson, Brother Brian Woods, Brother Dinan Yisrael. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Sister Yasatari de La Paz. All right. And Sister Yakahana, Sister Champel, Shabbat Shalom. Sister Teresa Rooks, thank you for the share, and Sister Alice Bronson for the share as well. All right, like I said, the Most High willing, we'll be back with another Shabbat Bible study. All right, so until then, enjoy the rest of your Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
My eyes on the prize, no lies for the youth. You gotta love them enough to tell them the truth. The reason why they killing and they dying in these streets. They don't know who they is. They don't know who they is, so preachers in pulpit flying through their teeth. I could never hate them, but we do got beef. The reason why they lawless and they hate to hear the truth. They don't know who they is. They don't know who they is.